The GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series powered by Fanatec is back, and we are in south of France at the Circuit Paul Ricard for the second round of this exciting new SRO Esports Championship. We've got 46 drivers representing 29 teams in 11 manufacturers for a 60-minute sprint to the checkered flag in the hunt for that all-important 25 points. Welcome everybody at home for joining in the broadcast. My name is Paul Jeffrey, and I am delighted to welcome alongside me the one and only Mr. Ben Constanduros. How are you today, sir?
Hey, great to be back. Great to be commentating with you guys and guiding you through an event, in fact, that I was at just a week or two ago back at Paul Ricard on site for the 6-hour endurance race. Obviously, not an endurance race tonight, but beautiful colours and beautiful sky as we experienced a few weeks ago.
And Ben, the most exciting thing I've got to ask you about this that ties in to our virtual event as well, is it as difficult in real life to work out which corner you're at when you're at Paul Ricard as it is in the sim, because they all look the same?
It's so true, right? I did a couple of laps last week in preparation for the GT Pro Series, and picking your apex is so tricky, especially around the bits where there are lots of different bits of layout. It's mainly in the final sector, and I see this track is broken up into 3 different sectors. You've got the first part of the lap before the Mistral, then you have the Mistral straight, and remember, we use the full straight here. We don't do the chicane like you would see in Formula 1. And then you have the second half of that, which is a more traditional layout. The second half of the lap is how Ricard was originally conceived and built back in the 50s or 60s when it was used as a Grand Prix track originally. The early part of the lap is a redesigned version of that, and so they have different characteristics, definitely.
And it's also, very, very importantly for the folks at home and for this broadcast tonight, it's a track where overtaking is exceptionally possible in these GT3 cars. We saw just a few days ago the Endurance Series, the GT World Challenge Esports Europe Endurance Series, did a 6-hour race here at Paul Ricard. There was passing in almost every section of the racetrack, wasn't there, Ben? And that, for our drivers, is going to be so very important in this, which is just a 1-hour sprint. Being able to move up, if you've had a difficult qualification session, for example, is going to be critical for those all-important points, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the track is not a follow my leader at all. You know, the difficult part of it is that when you get to the end of the Mistral straight, there isn't the massive braking zone that you would ultimately desire to dive down the inside. And so you can pick up a good slipstream and potentially even slipstream and pass down the Mistral, but when you get into senior, you're not slamming on the anchors. So then you see a bit of side by side. I think this is a place that kind of encourages a little bit of contact, and we need to be careful of that in tonight's race, that's for sure.
Yep, we do indeed. So, everybody at home, we're not far away from taking the green flag. Qualification has already happened, but let's have a quick look at the standings heading into the second race. Last time out at Monza, David Tinitzer for the FDA Esports team, the official Works Ferrari Esports team, took the checkered flag and the 25 points that came with it, alongside a very impressive Josh Rogers for the VRS Coanda SimSport team. Rogers finished second at the end and took the 18 points that come with it, ahead of Nils Naujoks in the BMW Motorsport Sim Racing G2 Esports entry. Naujoks arguably achieved the overtake of the season right at the very first race of the year, passing 3 cars in one great move through the Parabolica, and Gianni Di Salvo was the first of the drivers off of the rostrum in the second FDA Esports team Ferrari 488 GT3. Real world British GT racer, British GT Esports champion and former world's fastest gamer James Baldwin secured a subdued, shall we say, 5th position in the McLaren Shadow. Entry Eamon Murphy for Yas Heat found 8 points for his hard day's work for 6th position. Kevin Sigge, who had a monumental defensive race, only to lose tyres right at the very end of the stint and drop down into 7th, the team red line. Martin Kronke, the second VRS Cohen, the SimSport driver Porsche, was 8th position with 4 points. He'll be looking for a big night out tonight at Paul Ricard. In 9th was Darren King for the Dalkin Community Team Honda NSX GT3 Evo. Great to see an NSX up at the sharp end in the last race. And Lucas Muller for Hap Racing was in 10th position and scored himself a single championship point. So Ben, already we've seen a very interesting start to the season. Let's have a look at some of the drivers that have about to take to the track here at Paul Ricard. A few returning names and a few new drivers as well, Ben, courtesy of the qualification process that these drivers have to go through if they finished outside the top 5 last time around.
Yeah, amazing entry. Absolutely incredible to see the names, even on that first page. You can kind of read Coanda as the Works Porsche team, although actually David Williams driving a Bentley, I see. James Baldwin, effectively a McLaren Works driver here. We've got the BMW Works team, the Ferrari Works team. We're not talking about Sim Works teams. We're talking about real world associations. Great to see Kevin Lund in there, female racer Eleonora Rose. I noticed that we were talking about VR just before we came on air. She's on VR, so that's an interesting setup for her. And plenty of representation all the way through the field from around the world. For Ford, for instance, Team Works, Fordzilla is a Works Ford team. Attila there for BMW, BS Competition's version of BMW, but that still is a team sponsored and supported by the Works manufacturer. And I think that is just so impressive, this lineup.
Yes, incredible drivers. We've seen on the last page Arthur Camera, another driver we expect to be much more competitive this time around. Andrea Capoccia from Yas Heat in the Mercedes AMG GT3. Seen plenty of him in SRO Esports Competition. Igor Orognikov in the Aston Martin Vantage AMR GT3 for Lada Sport Roseneft as well. Another driver we've seen plenty of over the last 12-24 months in SRO competition. And to give everybody at home an idea of what these drivers go through, essentially each race is a standalone event within a championship that runs over the course of 10 rounds. The top 5 drivers from each race secure their place automatically into the next event. So that is David Tinitzer, Josh Rogers, Nils Naujoks, Gianni Di Salvo and James Baldwin. They're done deal. They're coming into the next race. Everybody else has to go through a hot lap qualification process to earn the right to be part of the event and to line up on the grid for the following event. So this is a double jeopardy, isn't it, Ben? That you need a top 10 because there's only the top 10 places pay points. But if you're outside that top 5, there's a danger, if you're not competitive in your car choice or your own skills, that you'll not get into the next race as well. So it's double jeopardy for our drivers, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And car choice, as you mentioned, is also very key for those that are able to choose their cars, because each track will favour certain different brands, as we see in the real world GT World Challenge. And you know, one car is designed very differently to another. A mid-engined car will function better at certain circuits to a front or a rear-engine car. And so car choice could be the winner and loser, but we do have the spread of cars in this series because there is only a certain amount of slots available for each manufacturer and each car, meaning that you don't end up with a whole grid of the best car, because sim racers absolutely know the best thing that exists for a particular, you know, they perfect everything, and so they know that on this particular track a certain car is a fraction of a second better than somebody else's, and therefore they would all choose that, and they would have done a test, probably would have tested every single brand just to find that piece of information out, so that they then choose that car. And we see so often in sim racing generally a favourite car versus a less favoured car, and we have grids full of the same thing. Here we have a very mixed grid and a very mixed qualifying grid as well. It's great to see that it is not just one brand dominating as we might see elsewhere.
And that is also a fabulous aspect of this championship. It is, as I mentioned earlier, a 10-round series. And we've started at Monza back on the 21st of May. Very, very quick track, the Temple of Speed, some might say. Paul Ricard with the Mistral Straight, an incredibly fast circuit again. But then on June 25th, we visit the Hungaro ring, which is slow, tight and technical. The Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit follows it, followed by Zandvoort on July 23rd. So if you're picking a car that's ultimately really slippery, lots of performance, really good in a straight line, Monza and Paul Ricard, happy days, laughing and clapping, get to the Hungaro ring and Dynamic Bop as well, you might have an entirely different experience. So expect this championship to ebb and flow each week. As we're looking now at the grid, Josh Rogers is your pole position man for VRS Coanda Sim Sports. Tobias Pfeffer on second position, third place, second row of the grid, championship leader David Tanitsa alongside Luca Lossio. Tommy Osgard for VRS in P5. World's fastest gamer James Baldwin lines up on sixth place. On the fourth row of the grid is Kevin Siggy for Team Redline alongside the big BMW of Arthur Camara in P8. Gronwald in ninth position, the number 52 that you see there, alongside our podium finisher at Monza Nils Naujoks, rounding out the top 10. Pash Gurgis, first time we've seen him this season for VRS Coanda in 11th. Gianni Di Salvo, a disappointed 12th position for the Ferrari team, alongside Dominic Blyer in 13th and Petrichenko in P14th. Savalainen is in 15th position for the Mercedes alongside Eamon Murphy. Expect Murphy to move forward as the race progresses. Tiskinev in the number 24 Lamborghini is 17th on the grid. Benedetti in P18, just ahead of Macaulay. In 19th, Jeremy Butlew we see in the Bentley Continental GT3. Coming into your shot now is our 20th place qualification driver. In 21st, Kevin Ciclari for another Bentley Continental number 191 alongside Charlie Crossland and Andrea Capoccia in 23rd. Sirica in 24th. Gregor Schill, a very disappointed 25th. Alex Hebignew in 26th. Igor Orognikov, P27. Masoud in 28th. Karim Matea, a disappointed 29th. Lemur in 30th position. Attila Denks once again in the Lamborghini lines at 31st. Whitehead in 32nd position. Probst in the Bentley Continental GT3 just about to come onto your screen is 33rd. David Williams in the number 31 car, 34th position. Quafella in 35. Martin Stefanko, very disappointed in the Aston Martin to be 36 on the grid. Ayanori Rose, our female competitor, lines up in P37. Massive grid that we've got here. Leonardo Dalcamo, 38. Grabowski in 39th position. Then we go all the way down to 40th place on the grid for Nicholas Hildebrand in the Honda NSX. Darren King, another NSX, in 41st position. 42nd is Amarache. 43rd, Catuzzo, Craner, Backum and Romenko round out 46 cars. Ben Constanduras, 46 GT3 cars at Paul Ricard in the setting sun, top level sim racers. I've got a feeling the next 60 minutes it's going to be a very enjoyable experience indeed.
Yeah. Race start is just after 9 o'clock, so we are very much going to see that beautiful orange hue that you get in the south of France at this time of the year that we saw blessing the 6 hours that happened 2 weeks ago in real life. And there is an amazing aerial shot of the complexity of the track and you know the extension that's been made initially by Bernie Eccleston, who bought the track and kind of kept it alive and added a 5-star hotel and Michelin star restaurant. Just around the corner is a 3-star hotel where everyone else who's like normal stays. There's an airport that runs alongside the start finishing straight as well, so the really rich drivers that can visit can fly straight in their private jets. It is an amazing facility, a beautiful place to visit because you're in wine country effectively. Oh, there we go, there's the airport, beautifully modelled in the Assetto Corsa Competizione. No planes there tonight, but I tell you, there was a lot of planes 2 weeks ago. Looking at the grid then, Darren King, I think, will be the most disappointed. Picked up ninth position in the first round of the championship and therefore 2 points. And I think you said that he is almost on the back row of the grid. So huge amounts of work for Darren to replicate his performance in round one. Tobias Pfeffer on the front row in that black machine just behind Josh Rogers. last time out picked up points, but did he pick up points? No, he missed the points, but he was in an Audi. And this time out, he's chosen a McLaren. And it does look like McLaren is quite strong at the head of the field, like it was last time out at Monza. So interesting that they're, as you said, outside the top 5, you're not locked into your car. If you're in the top 5, you're locked into what you use. And to be honest, the top 5 from last round wouldn't have any flexibility on the cars that they choose. Outside of that, they all have to qualify again, and therefore they all have to try again with the vehicle of choice. And Pfeffer obviously getting on well with the McLaren here at Ricard rather than the Audi.
And of course, a lot of these drivers as well, Ben, took part in the 6-hour endurance series for the SRO GT World Challenge Esports. So they'll have more than enough experience in this car or their cars, these conditions, and against each other as well, which will either lead, I'll make a prediction now, will either lead to 60 minutes of incredible racing or masses of overconfidence and testosterone, which will go into a multi-car first corner pile-up. We'll find out in a few minutes' time, but this is going to be fascinating, isn't it?
It's not an easy first couple of corners as well.
Yeah.
Bit of a braking zone into turn 1, which is the left-hander, and then the right-hander is off camber, and it's, with cold tyres, really tricky to get a good exit out of there down to the next complex of corners, which again you can send it. And it does take about half a lap. It takes until this straight for everyone to really settle down into a position and maybe then do a follow my leader, at least through senior. But just look how long this straight is. You can imagine how effective the slipstream is. A slippery car, a sporty shape rather than perhaps the BMW or Bentley boxes, it's certainly efficient when you come down this Mulsanne straight.
And another thing to throw in the mix, everybody at home, to take into consideration, of course, it is late in the evening in Sim in Paul Ricard. The sun is already starting to set. I'll expect the conditions to become darker and cooler as the race progresses, so the track will change. We're looking at Josh Rogers there, just warming his tyres up in pole position for the VRS Coanda Sim Sport car. So again, setup going to be really important. Tyre wear, not too much of an issue in a 60-minute race, but as conditions change, we'll see various cars going forwards or backwards as they start to come in to their own in these conditions, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And that management is a very different thing to the 6-hour race that they would have experienced, was it last week? The tyres ultimately should last, as should the fuel. That should cope with an hour. And this is not, I don't know, it's not massively heavy on tyres, but there are a couple of long, mid-speed right-handers especially that could put a bit of pressure on the left front. So you're going to have to be careful, I think, when you're going through certain corners, not to put too much energy through those tyres. But as you know well, Paul, and most of our viewers will do as well, they have all of that information on their dashboard. They can see exactly what pressure, what temperature is going through each tyre. And so it allows all these drivers to really manage their tyres incredibly well.
It does indeed, and let's find out what the fruits of these labours will be over the next 60 minutes as we are getting ready to start the GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series Round 2 from Paul Ricard, riding on board with Josh Rogers in pole position, Tobias Pfeffer in second place, looking to get an early jump from David Tanitsa and Luca Lasaya. We go green for the second race of the GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series. A good start from pole position for Josh Rogers. Immediately Pfeffer goes to the inside, tries to find a way past the Porsche man, can't do that one, defends the inside line. On the outside in the danger zone is David Tanitsa's Ferrari, light contact with another one of Porsche's 2 or 3 cars in the barriers at the back of your shot. Disaster further down the field, but Josh Rogers takes the race lead into T1. Everybody else gets themselves facing the right direction. Pfeffer retains second position. David Tanitsa avoided the danger zone and manages to stay in that P3 position. Tommy Osgaard now fighting hard following a small altercation with a Ferrari, another car facing the wrong direction. And Ben, we said it's going to be clean or disaster, and sadly disaster is what it was for many drivers further down the order.
Yeah, mid-pack, plenty of drivers getting involved in what looked like a 3-car accident into the braking zone to turn 1, but that accident then ended up flooding the track at turn 1, and James Baldwin now on the main straight slippery McLaren versus slippery McLaren. Baldwin has the inside line here and could well move up into 4th position in the braking zone to Senior.
Yeah, very brave from Baldwin there to put the car on the inside into Senior. Manages to make his way past the sister McLaren of Luca Lozio. So Lozio down into P5. Car number 27 has retired, that we have just been told over our tannoy. That's Kevin Lawn in the Audi R8 LMS. But Tommy Osgaard, now the VRS co-anda driver, had a good start, a good qualification. Got involved in an altercation with Tanitsa, I believe it was, as somebody else faces the wrong direction. And now Osgaard in the heat of battle side by side with a Lexus. That's Charlie Crossland, I believe it is. Osgaard fighting tooth and nail to try and stop the rot, try and keep himself in a decent opportunity to move forward. And drama, Ben, everywhere, more contact. Osgaard facing the wrong way.
So disappointing for Tommy Osgaard, representing Porsche and VR, and he's ended up on the inside. He's ended up kind of allowing a lot of people through. Very tricky final corner, and there's still 3 wide trying to go through turn 1. Here's Kevin Ziggy in the red line machine in 8th position. It was behind him where the action was happening, and I count about 30 to 40 incidents that have occurred on that first lap between various drivers. 77, 27 and 8 are the 3 cars that have not yet crossed the line at the end of lap 1.
Absolute drama, mayhem and chaos further down the running order. We're looking at Tobias Gronwall now at the moment, currently in 10th position in the number 52 Mercedes. Remember, 10th is the last of the points playing places, so Gronwall will be doing everything he can to try and retain that place for the unicorns of Love Racing Team. But Gianni Di Salvo a little bit further back, that is Petrochenko, I believe it is, blasting past down the Millstrel straight in the Lamborghini. The Lamborghini very slippery in a straight line. Gronwall picks the slipstream back up again for Senior. Doesn't quite have enough of an overlap. Can't affect the overtake. De Salvo in the background in 12th, keeping a watching brief. And great bit of driving from these two, but the Lamborghini certainly looks like it's got the chops in this early stage of the race.
Really surprising to see the Mercedes not particularly strong here. We've got 2 in the top 23 positions only, and Mercedes, a very strong car at Monza, but obviously not a car particularly favoured here. We know that you can't run a full hour stint on map 1 in the Mercedes. You do have to be a bit careful with your fuel, and maybe that's why it's not necessarily the choice of car. Kevin Lewin did come across the line in the number 8 machine, doing a lap time 1 minute slower than everybody else, and so he is at the back of the field, which means we just have that one retirement, which is the number 27 car. That is Kevin Lewin. It was then Thibaut Prost who did actually complete his first lap, although I think him and Jonas Salvonen ended up in pit lane.
Yeah, plenty of drama so far as we're looking now at Andrea Benedetti's 16th position in the number 34 GTWR R8G Academy Ferrari 488 GT3, trying to make his way past, I believe that is Masoud just ahead of him as we're looking now at Nils Naujoks, 7th position. So the Dutchman Nils Naujoks for G2 Esports has made his way past Kevin Siggy, starting to claw himself back into that all-important top 5 position. The BMW, we know, is not necessarily the most competitive car out there in the land of Assetto Corsa Competizione, but Naujoks can always be guaranteed to get the maximum from the big machinist. Is certainly doing a good job in a straight line. And next on the list for Nils Naujoks is his teammate Arthur Camara ahead. So will we see Naujoks move forward? Can Camara do enough to get past the McLaren of Luca Lozio ahead of him? We'll find out, but Naujoks so far a very strong start to his stint. And we see another car sideways, that's Gerkis. So Pash Gerkis in the VRS co-anda Simsport Porsche, facing the wrong direction at the exit of Senior. Gerkis will be able to get it back on the track again, but no doubt that'll push him outside of the points.
A weird one for him, just lost the rear end. Great to see these two BMW guys work together. It doesn't surprise me. We know that Nils Naujoks is a very intelligent racer, and therefore himself and Arthur Camara will waste no time fighting amongst themselves. They will probably even have a Discord chat amongst themselves, working out how they can progress forward as a team representing BMW. Forced to use that BMW, but I've never seen that BMW any faster than in the hands of Arthur Camara and Nils Naujoks, that's for sure.
Yeah, two great drivers maximising their results. We've seen the Williams Esports Aston Martin now driven by Moreno Sorica just being a little bit rough and tumble further down the running order. We've got a driver in pit lane, that is Patch Gurgis, so he's decided enough is enough and jumped down pit road. I'm also hearing in our race at number 58, so the VRS Coanda Simsport Porsche of Tommy Osgaard has returned to garage and will be retiring from the race. So a bad couple of laps for the second place in the championship team, VRS Coanda Simsport, but that's the hands of Josh Rogers, who's currently leading by 1.2 seconds from Tobias Pfeffer in second place. David Tanitza in third, a further 1.9 in arrears, fending off James Baldwin in P5. This is the battle for 7th and 6th position. The two BMWs, Kevin Siggy on the attack rather than the defensive. Last time we saw him, his watches were looking at Naujoks now, looking satisfied so far. A good first opening few minutes work from the Dutch sim racing veteran.
And he's got to hold off Kevin Siggy behind in the Team Redline McLaren. Now, Siggy also, weirdly, is a bit of a BMW works driver as well, isn't he? Because with Redline's partnership with BMW, he sometimes represents BMW and indeed did so in Formula E. So he has probably worked, although he's a separate team, he probably has worked alongside Niels and Arthur in other championships, and this is the unique way that BMW have approached sim racing this year and spread their load, if you like, across 4 professional teams: Williams, BS Competition, G2 and Redline, and then named certain drivers and certain teams BMW Motorsport through those. So Nielsen Arthur representing BMW here in the SRO Esports, but Kevin Siggy has represented BMW in other championships, even though he's a Redline driver. I hope that makes some kind of sense.
How we followed you, I think, and it's interesting to see actually how Kevin Siggy can be on the attack now. Last time around, he was defending for the full 60 minutes of this race. So can Kevin Siggy do something about making his way further up the running orders? We're looking again at the fight for 15th position. So this is Bernadetti in the number 34 Ferrari 488 GT3. Evo's got Masoud just ahead of him. Gregor Schill on the recovery in another BMW, down in 16th place, slowly but surely making his way up the running order. And the danger, isn't it, Ben, in a race like this where the field is so competitive? Remember, only 1.5 seconds covered our entire 46 car grid. You want to move forward, you want to push on into the points, but inevitably you're going to have somebody just as quick as you, if not quicker, trying to find their way past you as well. And it's balancing, isn't it, the defensive of the attack from behind and balancing that with the charge forward and trying to overtake the cars ahead.
And also making sure you don't wear out your tyres or overheat your tyres by pushing too hard. So you are racing the cars around you, but you're also racing your own vehicle to make sure everything lasts the hour. And this is a sprint series, yes, but it's still an endurance race. You are still on the limit of tyre and on the limit of fuel, and therefore I think in these early stages we are seeing a little bit of management going on. People just being conscious not to push too hard, take out too much in the early stages. And here is, we're watching the Russian Igor Ognikov for Lada as a works team. Lada Rosneft, well known in the World Touring Car Championship as a real world works team. Rosneft being a fuel supplier like your BPs or Shells, and have a long association with Lada. And Ognikov here representing the Russian fuel supplier, the Russian car brand, in an Aston Martin, but they were the champions, weren't they? They were the victors of the first round of the Endurance Championship.
Yep, great team, great driver. Rognikov, always good value for money when we watch him in the various seasons. Once again now riding on board with Kevin Siggy, doing everything in his power to get that Redline Racing run McLaren 720S GT3 up to the back of the two BMWs. We're looking at Siggy now and the picture-in-picture, concentrating down the Mistral Straight, trying to get the slipstream of the two BMWs ahead of them. BMW, of course, punches quite the considerable hole in the air, but it doesn't look like Siggy has got enough straight line speed at this stage in the race, at least, as Naujoks now is seen through the windscreen. Naujoks clears out the camera, heading into the braking zone of Senior. So a nice easy move for Nils Naujoks. That makes Camera a little bit slower to Senior than he would so desire. Siggy now trying to take advantage of it, looking to the inside, pressuring the BMW into making a mistake. Camera's got to be very careful to make sure he hits all the braking zones, all the apex as he possibly can. Goes on the defensive into the left-hander. Siggy will cut back to the inside. He will use the nimbleness of that McLaren to his advantage to try and get a run. Meanwhile, Attila Denks finds an extra position, but then gets repassed again by the Williams Esport run Aston Martin. So Denks secures it and loses it before he even has time to celebrate. And Siggy now down the inside into the final corner, great on the brakes, gets the car on the racing line. Nothing Artie Camera can do about that one. And Kevin Siggy moves up after Camera moves down, and Nils Naujoks has himself a 1.5 advantage for good measure.
Yeah, and that was all because Nils decided to move ahead of Artur, and that compromised Artur in the final sector, and that eventually allowed Siggy to dive down the inside into the final turn. A bit of a send-it move, because it's a bit of a stop, that last corner. But ultimately, if they'd stayed line astern, if Nils had just faded out the throttle at the point in which he decided to pass, we would have not had that situation. And that was not necessarily particularly good team play between the two BMW drivers. Interesting to see a bit further back here, 27th position for another of the Works BMW drivers. Behind him, you've got Jeremy Boutaloop in a VRS Bentley. And then there's also a VRS Lamborghini with Matt Backup. So the whole Coanda household, and if you're unaware, Coanda actually are a house of sim racers. They reside in the middle of Germany, and basically the outhouse of their house is full of sims, and they all sit in the same purple room, and they all race together, and they all eat together, and they drink together, and it's an incredibly unique situation for sim racing. It's not unique for it's not unique for esports, because we have many esports teams that do live together, but I don't think we have many sim racing teams that live together, and Coanda are one such.
Yeah, fantastic to see that. Coanda, of course, coming to Assetto Corsa Competizione relatively late to the party, but making a massive splash as they do, as Benedetti gets a drive-through penalty. So Andrea Benedetti in 15th position for avoidable contact. The number 34 Ferrari GT3, the GTWR R8G Academy driver, will have to make a little visit down pit road, which he does immediately serve that drive-through penalty. So watch Benedetti's name plummet down the running order, as we see now Catano, I think that is, in 27th place, make a mistake in the final corner. That is the trade of cars, very much like we see in oval racing in America. You get off the ideal line, you lose a little bit straight line speed, and 1, 2, 3, everybody's past you, including one of the previously mentioned VRS Coanda SimSport drivers. That's the Bentley of Jeremy Boutaloop, I believe it is there, getting a little bit hip and shoulder with the BMW. But Jeremy Boutaloop, Frenchman, very fast driver, again somebody we've seen a lot of in SRO and other competitions. Incredibly quick, and for a driver of that calibre to be outside of the top 20 just shows the level of competition here in the GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series. As we're riding on board now, James Baldwin, Works McLaren driver, former world's fastest gamer, chasing down championship leader Darrington Itzer in the senior, very fast corner to the right hand again, lots of curb on the inside and the outside, carrying the speed through into the second section. Very confusing braking zone here. You trail brake through the maximum radius of the corner, get the apex nice and late to get hard on the power. Don't forget you're losing downforce following the Ferrari ahead. You're working your tyres harder following in the dirty air. And last race at Monza, we saw Baldwin hold fire in the early stages, let his tyres have plenty of life, and that paid dividends at the end of the race. But this time, Ben, Baldwin has got the bit between the teeth and is going for it right from the very off.
Yeah, amazing to see that 7 laps in, he's able to still set green sectors. Green sectors being his personal best sector of Sector 1, Sector 2 on the last lap, and still Sector 2 on the one that he's just completed. Really in the slipstream of Tanitsa. Sometimes I think the Ferraris flatter to deceive, because they are always set up for race trim, and therefore rarely do we see a Ferrari really star in qualifying on a 1-lap pace. But they always come good by the end. But I've got to say right now, Tanitsa doesn't look particularly strong He's certainly under pressure from the McLaren, and Baldwin, I think, would prefer to have a bit of clean air, but then he's quite a way off Tobias Pfeffer, so he's not going to be picking up a slipstream from him, and probably would then be under pressure from, or drag Tanitsa along with him as they chase down our front two. Rogers has got a healthy, comfortable margin. It's just remarkable.
And it seems like, Ben, that race control are overstocked on drive-through penalties and are offering a fire sale for many cars. Kevin Staclari gets himself a drive-through. 15th place is cursed at this stage of the race. Drive-through for avoidable contact with the 191. And we've also got a drive-through for Eamon Murphy, a star last time out, 22nd position. He will be visiting pit road in the number 420 for avoidable contact with car number 77, which is Jonas Savalainen for the Jip Hacks Engineering Mercedes AMG. So a couple of drivers drive-through penalties. Number 93, which is, I'm looking down my list, Ben Craner has one for track limits, and car number 32, which is Luke Whitehead, and number 13, Adrian Antomarchi, have both retired from the race. So we've lost 2 or 3 drivers, but one driver we certainly haven't lost is Jared Petchenko in the Porsche, now trying everything he can to find a way past a struggling Artie Camera.
Now, I think we didn't see Petrenko in the first round. I don't think he qualified. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time we've seen Petrenko for Ajar Sim Racing, looking down the inside of Arthur Camera, who's certainly struggling in that BMW at this phase of the race, and down the inside that'll be a nice clean move for Petrenko, but the circuit does go right and Camera's fighting back. Ooh, and they've both gone a little bit side by side, but they were going to compromise themselves massively if they tried to do that anymore. So Petrenko has the place, and now he can set about chasing down Kevin Ziggy. I'm fearful for Camera that he may not be able to pick up any points, as he failed to do also in the first round in Monza.
Yep, Artie Camera having a difficult phase of his race so far. 42 minutes left on the clock. To remind everybody at home, of course, we have a mandatory pit window that will be opening in around 10 minutes time. That will last for 10 minutes. Each driver is required to visit pit lane, is required to put in a minimum of 1 litre of fuel. They don't have to change tyres. They don't have to put any more fuel than that in. They will serve that requirement, and away they goes. We're looking at David Tinitsa now, again on the defensive. The unflappable David Tinitsa for the FDA Esports team, 3rd position at the moment, not quite showing the pace that we've seen in both the opening round of the Sprint Series and of course the endurance event that we saw on this very same track last week. And Tinitsa suddenly finding himself under a new amount of pressure from James Baldwin as he put a Rognikov in the Aston Martin, 3 wide, Coanda on the outside, a Honda on the inside. The Coanda car goes a little bit wide. The Honda says, thank you very much, I'll take that one. And a Rognikov puts a lot of work in, gains a position, loses a position, and is now on the defensive from Murphy in 21st position. King makes his way past in the Honda. Great driving from all 3 of those to avoid a massive accident. And look who it is in the background. It is the the McLaren of Eamon Murphy trying to find a way past all 3 of them.
Oh, full send it down the inside. Classic last corner here at Paul Ricard. Send it down the inside. The driver doesn't realise you're doing it. Contact is made, and I'm afraid 2 cars go spinning. A Rognikov, I thought he might have been pulling into the pits there, but amazing. Darren King up to 17th position. I'm sure he qualified outside the top 40. He's already up to 17th. I think he's got a car in front, at least 1 car that's got to drive through, although that might have been taken. And so Darren, who picked up 9th position in the first round, could well find himself also in the points by the end of this one. His progress is absolutely spellbinding.
Yeah, it's fabulous drive there from Darren King, as you see him picture in picture again, concentrating hard in the Honda NSX. Not necessarily the fastest car in this competition, but a great performance for 17th place. He'll make another position as Denis Gavrovsky ahead gets the drive-through penalty in 16th. So that's another drive-through penalty that our drivers need to serve. Reminder to you all that drive-throughs don't count towards your mandatory pit stop. This is Gronwald now. Tobias Gronwald running in the points in the early stages of the race, starting to go backwards a little bit, and Gianni Di Salvo getting aggressive in 12th place in the Ferrari, the 2020 Ferrari Esports Series champion and new Ferrari Driver Academy recruit in the famous Italian brand. 12th position at the moment. He's 4th in the championship standings, so he'll be desperate to score an armful of points. And what he must do to get those points is find a way past that Mercedes ahead, to find a way past one more car for a championship, two more cars for a championship point. But ultimately, he'll want that top five. He'll want to fight for the championship. And Gianni Di Salvo, a poor qualifying by his standards for 12th position, has left himself open to a significant amount of work as we're starting to eke ever closer to the halfway mark in this race.
Still a long way to go, and the second half of any of these races is always the toughest, because that's when everything is worn out, that's when things are starting to need to be preserved, and Tobias Grunwalder's got this pressure of having to run the correct fuel map at the right time, make sure that the car will last the race, or he's taking fuel on at the pit stop. But I think ultimately, if you talk to anybody in a Mercedes, whether it be in Monza or in Ricard, they decide that fuel saving is faster than going into the pits and taking on a couple of litres of fuel. And the Mercedes just doesn't quite have the fuel mileage that the other cars has. So he's got that extra concern, which and how he'll be doing that is at the end of this straight, he'll be lifting off the throttle and freewheeling into scene, and that will use less fuel, but it will also put him under pressure from attacks from behind, and that is why Giovanni Salvo can really take advantage here into the inside of Senior, and that will be deal done quite nicely for the Ferrari. And you see, it's not that hard if the other guy's lifting off and you're full throttle.
Yeah, great overtaking manoeuvre, nice and clean. Tobias Grunwald recognised what was happening, allowed the manoeuvre to happen, didn't waste any time defending when it's not necessary. He knows that his race is all about the long game. David Tanitsa, meanwhile, isn't about the long game, it's all about the here and now. He's still under pressure from James Baldwin, manages to gap the Englishman now at 0.3 of a second, so Tanitsa building himself a small amount of fresh air. But while these two are squabbling, Luke Lassio in 5th place is starting to buy into this battle as well, so Tanitsa and Baldwin need to be a little bit careful. If they keep fighting hard, not only are they becoming detached from the lead battle pack, but they're also starting to invite a new driver into their private little fight as well, which is always difficult when you're looking in your mirrors and through your windscreen. We've seen David Williams now in the VRS boys swapping positions, nice and smooth, easy does it. Grabowski down pit road to serve his drive-through penalty as well, and that is Williams with the strikingly purple carpet in the picture-in-picture fighting hard.
And look, you can see exactly that in the background of his shot. You can see that there's another team member in that same place. They're all facing different parts of the wall, and I think that might be Josh Rogers in the back corner. So our leader in the same building. They must have great parties after these events, with all competing tonight and then finishing 10:30 their time. And what else do you do as young men all in the house together? Well, you got to get a party on.
Excellent stuff, that's what I like to see. Great environment, great to learn and to develop together, as Petrenko now 9th position becomes 8th position as he finds a way past 7th position, Kevin Sigis-Ajuri. Petrenko in the Porsche, first time we've seen the driver here in the European Sprint Series, making great grounds in that 911 GT3 for Ajar Sim Racing, up to 7th place past the Kevin Siggy powered McLaren 720S. Williams once again for the VRS Co-Anda Sim Sport Bentley Continental GT3 on the defensive now. That's Sarika trying to find a way past the Bentley. Is dangerous, hanging your nose in there. The VRS car recognises what's happening, got the inside for the second part of the corner, pushes the Aston Martin onto the outside line. Can he stay alongside him for the next section? No, he can't. Great bit of defensive driving from Williams. He's defending for himself, but he's also defending and protecting his teammate Jeremy Loop up the road as well.
Classic move, actually, that one, especially as your tyres get a little bit tired. You lose that grip and you start running a bit wider, and it just opens the door for people to hold the tighter line and just slot their nose down the inside. So Sirica stays on track, although he was taking a little sip of water. The pit lane window is open, and David Williams going directly into pit lane and serving that pit stop early. We've got plenty of guys at the tail of the field going in early, but I don't think actually the guys at the front would have been able to take it, because they would have passed the start finishing line before the window opened.
Yep, that's absolutely right. We've seen a mix of strategies over the course of this season and seasons past. So, very quick reminder, I'm sure people are fed up of hearing me say this one, but a reminder for you at home, mandatory pit stop, 10 minutes long, got to come down pit lane, got to put 1 litre of fuel in the car. The pit window is open for 10 minutes beginning now. You can tell when a driver has been down pit road if you look at the timing screen on the left hand side of your broadcast, where you see a little orange box with a number 1 in it. That means they still have to serve their pit stop. When they've served it, that will go green and you will know that they've filled their requirements for the race. A number of drivers further down the running order have immediately taken advantage of having their service and getting it out of the way. And we've seen, Ben, in previous races this season and last year, often the quickest strategy, if you have pace and confidence in the car, is to leave it right to the very end to serve your pit window time stop. But it all depends, doesn't it, on how fast you're going at any given time in the race and what's happening around you as well.
Yeah, it very much is. And in these kind of races, it is totally a reaction. It has to be a reactionary thing to what's happening around you. You can't be, you can't have a predetermined strategy. So certainly for somebody like James Baldwin, who's now in the tow of Tanitsa, he'll be thinking, am I benefiting from being behind David? Am I taking a slipstream and therefore gaining speed down the straight? Is that helping my lap time generally? Or am I being slightly held up by him and therefore by getting out of his air, getting into some clean air, banging in a lap or two before he comes into the pits, I can do a passing move and do the undercut, or vice versa, Tanitsa stays out and then pits and comes out further ahead of Baldwin, and that would be therefore the overcut.
And this is why, Ben, I absolutely love these kind of races with mandatory stops involved. There's a little bit of strategy as well. Can't get the job done out on track, do something different in pit lane. Give yourself an advantage. And Tanitsa's in a difficult position. He doesn't want to be squabbling with James Baldwin behind because defending is slower than pushing the ultimate potential of the car. But at the same time, you don't want to do something wrong. We're looking now at a quick replay of race starts. That's the number 32. That's Luke Whitehead in the Audi RM88 LMS. Look how busy the pack is. Heading down to T1. Whitehead goes to the inside. Doesn't realise there's a Bentley. How you can miss the Bentley on your inside, I do not know. That causes a chain reaction. Cars spewing all over the racetrack. And that is simply Whitehead not recognising he's got a car to his inside, being turned around. And when such a tightly compacted grid like that, Ben, it is a nightmare to try and pick your way through the debris, isn't it?
A bit foolish there from Whitehead. Definitely rule 101 of first corners is don't make any real moves. Stick to the line that you're in. And, you know, these drivers have got that heads-up display. They know what's going on around them. I tried to explain it in the Pro Series. It's not as though they are blind to their left and right-hand side. They might not be able to actually see because they might not have the screens, the wraparound screens or the VR to be able to actually turn their head and look. But they have a radar that shows them that there are people alongside, and therefore for him to just blindly move to the left-hand side knowing that he would have known that it was at least one car, he might not have known there were two, but that was very unfortunate, and it caused a big accident.
Meanwhile, while we were watching that replay, Kevin Siggy has become the first of the front-running drivers to hit pit road and serve that mandatory stop. Siggy came down pit lane from, I believe it was 9th position on track. He's dropped down the running order to the lower reaches of the top 20, so we'll keep an eye on Kevin Siggy and where he filters out in the equation when everybody else makes their stop. People like Nils Naujoks that we're looking at now in the heat of battle. Naujoks has got Lazio ahead and Petrichenko with a very impressive Porsche directly behind, so Petrichenko showing ample pace at this stage in the race. He'll want this stint to continue as long as possible while he's finding lap time hand over fist over his rivals ahead, so keep your eye out now for that number 26 Porsche, the Ajira Sim Racing Team Porsche 911. As we're looking at another replay, this is car number 24, this is the Lamborghini of Tiskovic in the middle of the pack, the danger zone, the heat of battle on the opening laps, gets a little love tap from behind by the Honda NSX. Nothing he can do about that one, desperately trying to avoid getting wrapped up in the rest of the field. And Ben, a field like this, as large as this, when you're in the middle of the pack, it's not necessarily a mistake you make, it's getting wrapped up in somebody else's problems, isn't it? As we see in Naujok's lapping one of the Hondas.
Yeah, it happens so often with such a busy grid, and you wouldn't look at the map and think this was a complex place to go racing, but those first and last sectors, you're constantly left to right, and there isn't really very much room for more than one line, and so that's where you end up tripping over slower cars and slower people. So the very busy part of the track, and that was just unlucky, really. I think the car in front, Ferrari, just checked up on him and he had nowhere to go.
And there was another incident very similar, Hibbing in the number 148, just getting too closely matched with other cars, spinning the car around on the early laps. And Petrichenko, that we spoke about, just going back on myself for a moment, has also made his stop. So he was the man on the move, right on the back of Nils Naujoks in 7th position. So this will be fascinating now. Petrichenko goes for a middle of the road pit window stop, 3 minutes left on the clock, so maybe a lap, possibly 2 laps earlier than the BMW that is fighting for position. So he's going for what is, in effect, as Ben explained earlier, the undercut, i.e. stopping earlier, hoping to push, get a faster out lap, and then take the position on pit road. So we will watch out to see how that progresses for the number 26 Porsche, dropping to 25th at the moment. So let's see where he fares once the BMW stop, as we're looking at yet another replay. This is an early incident for the number 32. This is Luke Whitehead, who's no longer part of the racing action, I believe, in the WRT. Audi in the middle of the shot, goes a little bit deeper in the corner, sees a little dive bomb opportunity into the final turn, holds up one of the Coanda Porsches as well, and the Coanda Porsche very quickly exit stage left, decides enough is enough today for me, thank you very much. And that was a typical but somewhat clumsy move from Whitehead there, wasn't it, Ben?
Well, and that eliminated Tommy Usgaard. That was the Coanda car. So a great shame for Tommy, who effectively representing Porsche there, and direct teammate for Josh Rogers. Ultimately would have been aiming for points today and missing out. And 21st in an Aston Martin first time out, but switches to the Porsche here in replacement, I think, for Martin Kroenke, who I don't think we have on the grid, do we? So Martin missing out on qualifying this time, although he scored points for 8th position in the first round. I think he is the only driver that we that scored points in round 1 and we don't have here in round 2.
And that is just what we spoke about at the start of the broadcast, isn't it? You don't finish in that top 5 in the race, then you've got to go through the qualification process. From Kroenke, 8th position last time out, very competitive in the 6-hour race as well. That will hurt the VRS Coanda SimSport driver massively to not be here for Paul Ricard. Still got 8 races, of course, to try and fight for that championship. There will be many ups and downs as this season progresses. We're looking at Denis Grabowski now in 30th place, trying to find a way past Luca de Alcamo's Ferrari ahead. Can Grabowski get it done into T1? No, he cannot. He will follow the Ferrari through this section of corners, trying to pick up a little bit of slipstream. Will not be too effective on the short straight before we get into the next chicane section. But the Aston Martin on its toes has a little bit more pace than the Ferrari at this stage. Decides against going for the inside. He wants to get it done on the Mistral straight. He'll follow the Ferrari as closely as he possibly can. Use a lot of curb on the inside, I'm sure, to get a good run, good slingshot now through this long right hand. The track will move back to the left hand side again. A light touch of the brakes just to balance the car through the corner and down the impossibly long Mistral straight. Denis Grabowski gets a good run on the Ferrari. Decide which way you want to go, outside or inside. I'll be hoping the Aston Martin driver to get this sign sealed and delivered before we get to the braking zone for Senior. If he does, it'll be a done deal, but the Ferrari has other ideas. A little bit more top end for Leonardo D'Alcamo on the inside, tries to go back to the racing line. There's an Aston Martin in the way. Can Grabowski go around the outside? No, he cannot. And back to David Tunitzer,
who is still under pressure from James Baldwin, who is still looking to try and get that podium. He missed out P5 in Monza in round 1. He's obviously British GT champion, but this is really the creme de la creme, not just of Assetto Corsa Competizione. This is creme de la creme of motorsport on computers in general. Yeah. Josh Rogers, a 2-time world champion on a different platform. Tunitzer, a 1-time world champion on a different platform. obviously you mentioned James Baldwin, a world's fastest gamer. This is the creme de la creme of every esport coming to Assetto Corsa Competizione, and it's incredible to see the dedication of all the teams and all the drivers recognising this championship as the place to be right now, and really upsetting the regulars. That, you know, Nils Naujoks on any given day be the dominator here, and he is the man when it comes to Assetto Corsa Competizione, but he has been shown heels here by guys from other championships as Camera and De Salvo go side by side.
Yeah, fabulous stuff. After Camera now, after the pit stop sequence, has found a little bit more speed. Gianni De Salvo was one of the big winners of the pit stop sequence, moving himself well into the top 10 points paying positions in 8th. After Camera in 9th place, trying to find a way past. But let's have a quick look. We've got 23 and a half minutes, just under, left on the clock. Everybody has served their mandatory stop. The pit window is closed, and Josh Rogers, unsurprisingly, continues to lead the race by 6.5 seconds from Tobias Pfeffer in P2. David Tinitza just about holding on to 3rd place from James Baldwin in the McLaren behind in P4. Tinitza and Pfeffer almost as one for the fight for second, so David Tinitza making significant ground on the McLaren. Ahead in 5th place, Nils Naujoks, ever wily, ever fast, moves his way silent but deadly up in the 5th position. Luca Lozio in 6th place, and the number 3 McLaren that we're looking at on screen is 6th. Kevin Siggy in the McLaren retains P7 from Gianni De Salvo in the 2nd FDA Esports team in 8th place. Arta Camera that we just saw on screen is 9th place. Dominic Blyer in 10th for Lamborghini, the Porsche of Petrochenko that we spoke about earlier, who was one of the earlier stoppers at the head of the field, plummeted down into 15th place. So Petrochenko, the man on the move. I don't know what's happened, whether he's had a long stop, made a mistake, but it's all gone wrong at the pit window.
That's a big shame, because he definitely was the one with the pace, but with the pace, was he pushing and using too much fuel, and therefore he's had to take a bit of fuel to get himself to the end of the race? Quite possible. Tinitza going around the outside of Tobias Pfeffer here into senior. Pfeffer's going to have the inside line for the next turn. Look at the concentration in the right hand corner. Is there a little bit of kissing? Doesn't quite make it stick, but we have got a race on here for second position. Something has happened in this latter half of the race for Tobias Pfeffer, who's not had the pace of the early part of the race, and maybe that is him pushing too hard early doors, and therefore running out of tyres and brakes and fuel at the end of the race. And we know the Ferraris always run to the end and run good to the end.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Ladies and gentlemen at home, if you want to go for a toilet break, I suggest you hold it. If you're making a cup of tea, leave the kettle to boil. This is a motor race with 21 minutes to go. The fight for second position, Tobias Pfeffer, David Tinitza, James Baldwin as one. McLaren, Ferrari, McLaren, the championship leader, 2 pretenders to the championship crown as well, all fighting for that all-important second position at the 18 points that go with it. Tobias Pfeffer held 8th at second position all the way from the green flag, now under pressure from the F1 Esports World Champion, the championship leader, the official Works Ferrari driver, David Tinitza. Following closer, the British GT Esports champion and real world racer and world's fastest gamer, James Baldwin. 3 very fine drivers at the absolute limit, the top of their abilities, squabbling over the same piece of tarmac. Can Tinitza find the all-important championship points? He does not want Josh Rogers to get an advantage over him. Remember, if it finishes as it finishes now, Josh Rogers will be the championship leader, so Tinitza needs to make this move happen. Goes to the outside, heading into senior. Last of the late breakers is the Ferrari, but not quite enough of an overlap. It keys the car on the outside within the track limits. Pfeffer on the defensive. Tinitza once again, second lap, second time around, still can't find a way past. Cuts back to the inside. Pfeffer is wise to it, defends the inside line. Meanwhile, James Baldwin, ever methodical, ever calculated, watches with interest as these two fight, these two push their cars, these two take the chances. Don't be surprised if Baldwin easily walks past both in a late overtaking manoeuvre. But Ben, this is exactly what we get up for, sitting in front of our screens in our boiling red hot rooms with our headsets on to watch. This is magical stuff, isn't it?
I don't know if Tobias Pfeffer can really absorb this pressure from two of the greats of the esports world for the next 19 minutes. He's done defensive well for 2 laps, but he's got so many more laps to do it, and I don't know if he's got the pace to pull away from this battle pack, and therefore he'll have to repeat that defensive mover over and over again. And in the back of Tunitsa's head, he's thinking, okay, so that's what Pfeffer's doing. What can I do differently? How can I force him into a mistake or find a space to get past? And then Baldwin's just going to go, oh, okay, I'll follow through. Thanks very much. He's in a chill position right now, James Baldwin. But that inset of Tobias Pfeffer, I don't know how old he is, but he looks incredibly young to be absorbing the kind of pressure that Tunitsa and Baldwin. There we go. He's not quite in frame, but I don't know. He looks like he's a young whippersnapper. He's certainly younger than me and you, Paul. That's for sure.
I think many people are younger than ourselves, Ben, unfortunately, nowadays. But Pfeffer's actually around 15 or 16 years of age. So very much a newcomer to the world of esports and sim racing. He's showing incredible composure in that McLaren. What I like to see, Ben, what I'm enjoying from Tobias Pfeffer's performance here, and I say this many times on broadcast, he's not defending fresh air. He's not defending things that he doesn't need to defend. He knows exactly where he's vulnerable, exactly where Tunitsa's opportunities lie, and he's covering the line when he needs to, but still trying to keep as much forward momentum. And that's the sign of a driver that has enough mental capacity to be able to think about his moves rather than being reactionary, and that bodes very, very well for Tobias Pfeffer. But as you say, Ben, I cannot see him being able to keep this up for 17 minutes and 35 seconds. It's just such a tall task, isn't it?
And also the pace is not on Rogers' pace. So if Tunitsa has ambitions to chase down Rogers, he needs to get this move done. He needs to be more aggressive than he's being right now. He needs to send it hard, get it done, and then move on, and then chase down Rogers, because that gap has come out from 4 or 5 seconds out to 7 now, and that is simply because they are not taking the ultimate racing line. They are squabbling over track position and therefore not being as fast. And Baldwin as well knows that he is losing and hemorrhaging time here. Baldwin has the opportunity to move up into second if he's really, really clever here. We only get a chance to see his water bottle in his arse, but I imagine his face is an aggressive concentration face. I know what James is like when he really has the bit between his teeth.
Yeah, his face will also be clenched, one would imagine. But James Baldwin currently in 4th place. And this is fascinating as it is for us in the comms box and the viewers at home. Great as this racing battle is, it's costing 3 drivers, and it's costing them significantly now. They're holding each other up. People like David Tunitsa in 3rd position, he's burning his tyres up, he's burning his fuel up, he's burning his concentration up much more than he'd want to be at this stage in the race. And not only is he losing time to Josh Rogers at the front of the field, he's also compromising the quality of his car for if and when he does pass Tobias Pfeffer, he's going to have less in the tank, proverbially speaking, less resource to draw upon to start closing that significant 7.5 second gap. And let's be honest here, Nils Naujoks is only 3.8 seconds behind in 5th position, and I don't know about you, Ben, but Nils Naujoks is one of the last people I would like to see in my rear view mirror if I'm engaged in a battle, because he knows how to overtake, he knows how to put you under pressure at the right spot. So this 3-way battle could very quickly start to become a 4-way one if one of these drivers doesn't bite the bullet and get past Tobias Pfeffer in the next lap or so.
Pfeffer's got legs coming out that final corner, though. That car does grip well and take off, and whilst Tunitsa was following him through the last sector of the lap, he wasn't able to stay close enough through the final corner and onto the start finishing straight to be able to make a move. So the only place where this Ferrari is really, really strong is coming onto Mistral and along Mistral, and that is where Pfeffer has him covered every single lap. So Tunitsa now needs to really start thinking and being and improvising as to how he's going to get past, knowing also that in his rear view mirror he has James Baldwin, that if Tunitsa puts himself on the wrong part of the track, Baldwin will take control, and Baldwin will be sitting there going, come on, just overtake so we can both get past, and if you're not going to, it's my turn to try. And actually, if I was Tunitsa, I'd be looking at kind of exchanging and saying, okay, off you go, you have your go. But just that Ferrari is so much faster. down the straight. It draws alongside, but cannot do anything. This is now where he needs to carry that momentum into the next corner and try and send it down the inside, but there's no space. Pfeffer's holding that inside line, and Tanitsa now, the next opportunity is under brakes into turn one, if he can stay close enough through this final sector of the lap.
Fascinating, fantastic stuff from these three drivers, and David Tanitsa, very calculating driver, of course. He'll know that he's, hopefully for him, going to be in with a shout of fighting for the championship over the course of the season. So much as he would like those 18 points for second position, he will also be very, very cautious about doing something silly, losing track position, having a spin, attracting himself a penalty, and throwing away good championship points as well, because you've got to bring your A game when you're racing against the likes of Josh Rogers and VRS Coanda week in, week out. And now look, Tanitsa started to get a little bit defensive from James Baldwin. Baldwin doing much like he did last time out at Monza, and he's just watching, learning, observing, conserving his tyres as well. In the background of the shot, we see Nils Naujoks bringing Luca Lusaio along with him as well. So we suggested Naujoks might be in the fight, but he's also bringing along the number 3 McLaren as well. So this could be a 5-way fight before too long. We've only got 13 minutes left on the clock. David Tanitsa once again coming into the Mistral straight section of track. Is a little bit closer to the McLaren. Pfeffer will keep hard to the right hand side of the circuit to cover the inside line into senior. Tanitsa has ample straight line speed, but not enough to clear that McLaren before we get to the braking zone.
Maybe this time though, he was much closer, and he's got more of an A-pillar this time, and he is going to get enough momentum into senior to make this happen. It was a much better exit down the bottom of the straight 1.5 kilometers before, and Tanitsa has managed to make it stick, and it was just simply momentum. But now watch the McLaren fight back into the last turn and down the start finishing straight. There's McLaren's pick up and ultimately have much better acceleration, and Pfeffer has the chance here to fight back, but Baldwin will be wanting to get past quickly because he won't want Tanitsa jetting off into the distance. Baldwin sniffs a second here.
He does indeed. James Baldwin now on the attack again, currently in 4th position. Tobias Pfeffer recently moved down into 3rd place. This will be a big test of the young German's mental resolve if he can pick himself back up from that disappointment and start the charge once again. Don't let David Tanitsa break the toe. Do not let him get a gap to you. They will become even more difficult to find a way past. Baldwin a little bit detached, relatively speaking, from this battle pike, as we've seen Tobias Pfeffer now quickly recovers himself, currently in 3rd place. James Baldwin wants that 3rd place, Tobias Pfeffer wants that 2nd place, David Tanitsa wants the checkered flag. Excellent stuff.
Great battles, very sensible battles right now, but as we get into the last 10 minutes, I know that their desperation will start to kick in. Pfeffer's very tight into that last corner, and that's compromising him as well. It'd be interesting to see McLaren on McLaren here. We know that the Ferrari is going to disappear and wave goodbye to those 2 McLarens, but Baldwin, you know, Baldwin's running a separate team to Pfeffer. Pfeffer being part of R8G, Baldwin being part of ultimately Veloce through McLaren Shadow. So they'll be running a different philosophy, different setup. Pfeffer kind of, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? It looks like he's accelerating away, then he's being pulled in. Ultimately, he's got a slipstream. He's not defending the inside line, but Baldwin's not close enough this time.
Yeah, Baldwin in frustration, flashing his lights. Pfeffer carries an incredible amount of speed through senior, just about keeps it within the fair racing tarmac area allocated to these drivers, and rather than defending from James Baldwin, that little bit of bravery into one of the most dramatic corners at the Paul Ricard circuit is starting to bring him back into contention with David Tanitsa again, who just can't quite make the gap he needs to at this stage in the race. Meanwhile, Nils Naujoks, last time I looked, was 3.9 seconds in arrears, is now 2.9, so Naujoks finds a second in the last lap and a bit. Does he have enough time on the clock to close this gap and find a way past? We'll find that one out in 9 minutes and 51 seconds, but James Baldwin will be aware of this. His team will be whispering in his ear, James, now's the time. Now's the time to attack, because pressure will start to build behind you. Find a way past that McLaren. You know what Tobias Pfeffer's got underneath him. You observed him for the last 20 minutes. You're driving the same car as him. Use some of that skill, use some of that experience, use some of that magic, and get that third position, because James Baldwin, currently 5th in the championship standings, with Gianni Di Salvo having a low scoring day so far in 8th, with Eamon Murphy nowhere near the points at this moment in time as well. He needs a big result today, will move him very quickly up the championship standings.
And he knows, he's run championships before, he knows it's not about individual performances, it's not about starring every day of the week unless you're Lewis Hamilton. It is about collecting points on the days where you can't do the starring result, and it's about maximising the days where your car is best. And ultimately, the Porsche in the hands of Josh Rogers does seem to be a different beast to every other car, but if you take that out, this is a fantastic battle for the lead if you forget Josh Rogers. And so, yeah, McLaren, I think today is the day for the McLaren. The circuit is right for the McLaren, and so he needs to maximise points, and ultimately that does mean, I think he had the possibility of getting past Tanitsa, but Tanitsa getting past Pfeffer has now meant that Baldwin is a bit out of touch, and in 8 minutes, in 4 laps, he's got to pass 2 cars, and it does look as though Pfeffer is benefiting from the Ferrari slipstream on the Mistral to keep Baldwin at bay.
Yep, it's going to be a good close to the race with these 3 drivers. No traffic getting in the way at this stage in the race, which quite surprises me. I expected 1 or 2 of the back markers to get into the mix over the course of a 60-minute race, but such is the pace and the level of this field in the GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series, powered by Fanatec, that the back markers are well and truly up the road. So it is just down to these 3 drivers, their own piece of tarmac, their own car setup, their own cars, their own mental capacity. Best man wins on the day as Andrea Capoccia now in 12th position, coming under pressure from Petrichenko that we saw well into the points earlier in the race. Petrichenko in the Porsche gives a little bit of a kiss to the Mercedes, trying to exchange wing mirrors but not quite achieving it. Petrichenko turns in, did not see the Mercedes or try to pressure Capoccia off the racing line, flashes the lights, lets the Mercedes man know that he's there, and you can see from the body language of the number 26 Porsche of Petrichenko, he's fast but he's frustrated. He does not know how his race has fallen apart, and unfortunately, as the clock ticks down, ever less likely to score a deserving point from what has been an incredibly good debut performance from the number 26 Porsche driver.
Yeah, shout out for his livery as well. Gold wheels with British Racing green. That is absolutely stunning on a Porsche. Looks so good. And this is absolutely deal done here. Petrenko is the faster man. The Mercedes is not strong. And you kind of relax on the straight. We're looking at the face of Andrea Capoccia there. And he's really not particularly concerned about what's happening. He's on a single screen. He doesn't really have the perception of anyone running alongside him, so he's just concentrating on his own race, and amazingly for the moment kept Petrenko at bay. But I agree with you, I don't know what happened to Petrenko in the pit stop, but ultimately he should have been picking up scraps today. He should have been in the outskirts of the top 10, and he's going to miss out from something in the pits that was slow.
Yeah, but the Porsche now is looking very, very fast. You can see from the picture-in-picture that Capoccia's got plenty of understeer in that Mercedes towards the dying embers of this race. The Porsche looks much more nimble on its toes, goes wide into the final corner to get the run out on the start-finish straight now. He'll use the slipstream of the Mercedes. The Mercedes trying to break the toe, goes to the right-hand side of the circuit. The Porsche not quite good enough for a run. I don't think in a T1. Goes defensive down into the first corner. The Porsche decides, yes, I'm having a piece of that one. And Petrichenko up the inside, uses all the curb, manages to avoid any kind of contact, stays wide with the 494 and secures the position. That is a man who is so frustrated and so hungry for track position, and he gets it eventually for 12th place for Piccaccio in the number 26 Porsche. Takes the position, but as you said, Ben, a shame based on the speed and performance that we've seen so far that is well outside of the points, as Tobias Pfeffer now under pressure from James Baldwin.
And we did see a change for the 10th position. Thomas Grunwald getting into 10th position, passing Blaya. So the Lamborghini, I was looking at the Lamborghini thinking, Lamborghini in 10th, that's a point scoring position. And then just as that happened, Grunwald got ahead. So that was a lap ago, maybe even into turn 1. Mercedes not strong on the Mistral, and the Lamborghini will come back at him. But ultimately, the fuel saving is done, and Tobias can now push on.
Yeah, got a little bit of racing there, so we'll keep our eye on that one for the final, put my teeth in, the final points paying position of the day in 10th place. Currently, Groswald is the man that holds that place, but Blaya in the Lamborghini GT3 wants to get the position back, and Tobias Pfeffer, the young 16-year-old German driver, held second position throughout the course of the race, lost it to championship leader David Tanitzer, has done a great job to hang on to the back of the Ferrari man and cover off James Baldwin in an exactly same McLaren 720S GT3, run by different teams but the same car under the hood. And Tobias Pfeffer is performing miracles in these last 18 minutes, but does he have enough left in the tyres? Does he have enough left in the car as the sun has well and truly set now? The lights are ablaze and it's starting to get dark here at Paul Ricard. That will be a different dynamic for these drivers to contend with. Their braking points will be harder to pick out. The circuit will look different. The lights will be ablaze in the rear view mirror, and all these and more will be running through Tobias Pfeffer's head as he gamely hangs on to third position with 3 minutes and 12 seconds left on the clock. So what, 2 laps, Ben?
Yeah, I reckon so. Josh will be coming close to the end of the lap now. There he is, just going through the shop. We haven't seen him once, have we? But there is the 92 Porsche, 92 because it's a traditional Porsche number, and Josh is effectively a works Porsche driver, although ultimately he would be saying I'm flattering to say that, but he represented Porsche this time last year in the virtual 24 Hours of Le Mans, and there's good links between Coanda and Porsche, and he is always in a Porsche in the high level events. And okay, didn't quite manage to complete the full amount of points last time out, second position in the first round in Monza, but he has absolutely dominated. The gap has come down a little bit in the last lap from our group with Tanitzer, Pfeffer and Baldwin, but I think he is on cruise mode, Josh Rogers, right now, just bringing it home, getting to the flag.
Absolute disaster as well for Tobias Grunwald in 10th position. The final points paying that we were speaking about, drive-through penalty for track limits. What a heartbreaking scenario on what will effectively be the final lap as we're looking at the Williams Esport Aston Martin now rubbing shoulders with the Lexus for 33rd position. Losers out of the second section of the corner. So that's Sarika and Hildebrand, I think it is, that we're looking at on the contact. Oh, heavy contact between the two cars. The Aston Martin very, very aggressive. Whether that was a mistake or retribution, I will leave to the discretion of the stewards. But meanwhile, back to Tobias Pfeffer, what must be one of the final few sections of corners as Grunwald comes down pit road and gives that 10th place to Dominic Blaya in the number 10 Lamborghini. And heartbreak for Grunwald, but this is still a fight, very much open to drama, shall we say.
Good effort from the back markers, probably getting out of the way, even though the guys at the front of the field trying to benefit from the slipstream. And one of them, I think, went onto the shortcut of the, there's 247 versions of the Paul Ricard circuit, and one of our back markers there decided to take a new version of the circuit. It ranges from 860 meters all the way through to the circuit that we use for this, which is 5.8 kilometers in length. That's the longest Paul Ricard circuit, and it's quite a place. Paul Ricard, by the way, and I'm sure most of you are aware, a very, very important man in the region, became mayor of Signa, which is the village just across from the track, and invented the Ricard drink, which is an aniseed-based liquor that everybody in the south of France drinks with a bit of water. Personally, it's disgusting, but a lot of the French, southern French, absolutely love it. Pastis is the name, and Paul Ricard made it the most famous of of all of France. He had a circuit named after him, and he built it in 1970, and then became mayor of Signes. And there's a square in his honour as well in the little village of Signes. So very, very important man, and ultimately much better to call this track Circuit Paul Ricard than the other name, which is Circuit du Castellet, which is the other village.
So there we go, folks. You come here for the sim racing, you go home with facts, figures and information courtesy of Ben Constanduris. Great little insight there. I didn't know that one, actually. So good stuff. And meanwhile, we are now, Josh Rogers, the man who's had basically nothing to do apart from stroke his VRS Coanda car home to the checkered flag, has entered the final lap of the race. The battle for second, third and fourth rages on with James Baldwin on the attack. You can see that on the right hand side of the screen. You can see on the left hand side of the screen Josh Rogers looking to bring the car home, and fights all the way through the field. But that man, Josh Rogers, has been on another level, hasn't he?
And let us not forget that Josh turned his hand to ACC just a couple of months ago. This is not a man that's been racing Assetto Corsa Competizione since it was released a couple of years ago now. A couple of months of experience, and the champion 2 times over in iRacing has now got himself a victory. First time out in the Sprint Series for Joshua Rogers, for Porsche and for Coanda, and what an incredible result that is for Josh, who moves himself into the championship contention ahead of David Tonizza. Pfeiffer holds on for third position, and a very, very respectable drive from Tobias Pfeffer with James Baldwin just behind him. Now Yox will be grumpy, because he always is, but he should be happy with fifth position in the BMW, because this is not a BMW track, and he's done a great job to keep Losso at bay in another of McLaren. Siggy in the fourth of McLaren in the top 7 positions, and then the rest of the point scorers, Salvo and Arta Camera. Everyone else just getting more experience and gaining more ground for when they go into the hot lap competition for our next round in a couple of weeks' time. And still plenty of battling going on, plenty of people having a good time. Not quite sure why David Williams has not taken his pit stop, but he will be removed out of 16th position and promoting everyone behind him up 1 spot, with Stefanko for Williams there. Ultimately will be 17th spot. There's still a couple of penalties, time penalties, to be issued from our provisional race result on the left hand side to our actual race result in a few moments' time. And actually, we didn't lose too many cars in the end, did we? About 10 machines not able to get to the flag, but it was a pretty clean race after the first couple of laps. And there's the Works Honda driver, Yas, being the builder of that Honda NSX, and HPD Yas Pro being the Works team.
Absolutely fabulous stuff from all our drivers. Josh Rogers, our race winner and now joint championship leader, from David Tonizza in second place, Tobias Pfeffer, James Baldwin and Nils Naujoks are all drivers that get themselves an invitation to the next race of the season, which will be taking place at the Hungaro Ring on the 25th of June. Everybody else needs to go through a hot lap qualification process in order to earn the right to race. And as we expected at the start of the broadcast, as we have come to expect from SRO Esports competitions, the GT World Challenge Europe Sprint Series, the Endurance Series, the America Series, the British, the Asian Championship and the Pro Championship as well, the racing has been absolutely incredible. And Ben, take a moment, let's have a breath, let's reflect on some of that one. We've had 2 races, we've got 2 of the best drivers arguably in virtual motorsport, but they tied on points at the top of the standings.
Yeah,
right. Start to the year.
And I love the fact that neither of them are what we would class as ACC specialists. You know, they're not the same names that we ultimately come to see day in, day out when you do a lot of ACC. And it really has been, apart from this first corner, an incredibly clean, competitive, clever race. And all these guys, you can look at them and think, you know, these aren't just crazy kids. We've got rid of the crazy kids. These are intelligent racers that know what they need to do. Other than this move, which was a little bit silly. Bish, bosh, bash. There you go. Take out 2 BMW Works cars. Nice work. and a Works WRT team, and obviously WRT being the Works Audi runner in the Real World Championship, and that caused a bit of strife. And actually, I think he did continue, didn't he, Paul, and caused more strife later on for Thomas Usgaard.
Yeah, difficult event there for the number 32 Luke Whitehead. But as you said during the broadcast, these are all experiences that drivers will use. They will gather the knowledge, they will gather the experience and take it forward into future competitions. And as you say, apart from lap 1, the racing has been incredibly tight, incredibly good throughout the field. But somebody who's not had tight racing, somebody who's had very much everything to themselves for the entire 60 minutes. It's our race winner, Josh Rogers. We speak again. Congratulations.
Hey guys, how is?
Fantastic performance, Josh. Dominating at the front of the field. How does it feel to be joint championship leader and winner of Paul Ricard?
I mean, I prefer to be leading the championship, but David did an awesome job in the end there to get the car back up to P2. But no, it was, it's awesome. I think, coming into this one, we were a little unsure of where the car was going to be honest, with all the changes. And I think certainly late stint pace was lacking. The balance just wasn't there, but managed to just sneak a lap together in qualifying to get to the front. And I knew it was always going to be really difficult because of the extreme straight speed of both the McLaren, I guess the McLaren BMW and the Ferrari. As long as I kind of got through the first sector okay on lap 1 and had enough to break the draft, it would be okay. But it was always kind of a bit of a mixed bag. But no, it was awesome. I'm stoked for this one.
Now, when we spoke to you at Monza, you were a little bit disappointed to be second position, and you suggested that yourself and the team would go away and review how to come back stronger. What sort of process have you been through since we last saw you at the Italian venue in the Sprint Series?
So I mean, us at VRS Coanda, we're certainly the kind of guys that, when we see other people do a better job, we break everything down and try our best to make sure we can then get the most out of ourselves and what we're driving. Obviously, we were a very close bunch of drivers. There was quite a few of us in this race, unfortunately, a little bit unlucky for the rest of the guys. But we were all working together really, really closely and, comparing to each other, trying different setup options here and there, all these sorts of things, just to try and make sure that we rule out as many unknowns as possible, really. Obviously, I think here we could have potentially practiced a few more race runs to get the late stint balance a little bit better, and obviously the air temperature is quite a bit lower than what we're practicing it too, so there's always things to improve, there's always room to work on, but no, overall it was still an awesome job from everyone involved, and I think that's why you see the sudden difference from round 1 to round 2. I think there was obviously round 1 being our first race in ACC, there was plenty of things that we knew that we were going to need to improve on, and I think we're certainly all a lot more comfortable with it now.
Well, congratulations to yourself and the team, Josh. An absolutely incredible performance, and 25 points are your reward. Well done. Josh Rogers, winner of round 2 of the GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series. Well done.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Josh. And Ben, that was a dominant performance, wasn't it, from the VRS Coanda team?
It's just so scary, isn't it, to have the name Coanda, the name Josh Rogers on the entry list, and just know that they are always going to be the top of the game. They will always extract every second of performance, every millisecond of performance out of the car. That Porsche will not be the dominant car for the whole season. Actually, might be quite good at Hungary, I think, unless the BOP goes against them. But ultimately, Josh and the team and everybody there, although Josh is obviously Australian, he lives in Germany with the team, and they spend every day. They are professional racing drivers, and therefore, unlike professional drivers who spend a lot of time on the golf course because they can't be on a track all day every day, on sim racing they can, and that is why these guys are so much at the top of their game, and it's really impressive, not only from Coanda to come and dedicate some time into ACC, and the championship in sprint and endurance is pretty heavy for these guys, but to also be absolutely nailing it with Josh is just awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible to see how virtual motor racing, sim sport, esports has progressed over recent years. Once upon a time, much like yourself, Ben, I've been in the game, so to speak, for many a year now, and it used to be a case of you have a high-profile championship and you turn up and you're naturally fast. Happy days. Now these guys have got teams of engineers behind them. They're going through telemetry tracers. Like you say, they've even got their own house where they all sit together and focus their entire life goal on being competitive. So absolutely fantastic stuff. Now, everybody at home, thank you so much for joining in. We're next up at the Hungaroring circuit on the 25th of June for round 3 of the season. Can David Tinitzer bounce back? Will Niels Naujoks pull another rabbit out of the hat? And can the rest of the field do anything about Josh Rogers? Tune in to find out. But from myself, Paul Jeffrey, and from my man, Mr. Ben Constanduros, thank you all so very much for tuning in. Until next time, bye-bye.